It was supposed to be a peaceful Sunday morning, birds chirping, the sun warm but not oppressive, and my backyard pool glistening like a sapphire oasis. I had just finished cleaning the filters and laying out towels when the first signs of trouble strolled down the street, wearing designer sunglasses, holding a clipboard, and exuding pure entitlement. Her name? Patricia Langston, but everyone in our gated community knew her by a different name, HOA Karen. Patricia had appointed herself as the self-proclaimed enforcer of all things neighborhood-related. While she technically held a position on the HOA board, she used it more like a throne than a duty. Over the years, she had issued complaints about my mailbox color, the number of cars in my driveway, too, mind you, and once even took pictures of my grass to claim it was 1.5 inches too long. But this time, it wasn't the grass. It was the pool. "You need to shut that pool down," she announced loudly from the sidewalk, clipboard in hand like a weapon. The HOA guidelines clearly state that all pool parties must be pre-approved. You didn't submit a form. "There's no party, Patricia," I said, still polite. "It's just me and my kids. We're not breaking any rules. I saw the delivery guy with pool toys and snacks yesterday, and I heard laughter. That's clearly a gathering," she barked. I took a deep breath. "Patricia, there's no law against having fun in your own backyard." Apparently, that was the last straw, because 30 minutes later, 2 police cars pulled up in front of my house. One of the officers approached me, trying to conceal his smirk. "Sir, we got a call about an unauthorized pool gathering." I couldn't help but laugh. "You're kidding." "No, sir. Unfortunately, we're required to respond. Mind if we take a look?" "Of course not," I said, waving them in. The pool party consisted of my 2 kids doing cannonballs and my wife, Julia, sunbathing with a book. There was no music, no guests, no chaos, just a family enjoying their backyard. The officers took one look, exchanged glances, and turned back toward their cars. "You're all good here," one said. "Sorry to bother you." As they left, Patricia stood at the edge of her driveway, arms crossed like a statue. I shook my head and went back inside, thinking it was over. I was wrong. The next day, I received a formal complaint from the HOA citing reckless community endangerment, unpermitted recreational activity, and a violation of pool party protocol, whatever that meant. Attached was a demand to drain my pool until I held an official meeting with the HOA board. Now here's the thing Patricia didn't know. My wife Julia is not only a lawyer, but she's also the newly appointed chairwoman of the county's Zoning and Property Code Enforcement Board, a role that just so happened to give her full authority over all municipal property regulations, including HOA conduct. Instead of calling Patricia, Julia decided to do things by the book. She filed a formal countersuit against the HOA for harassment, misuse of public services, namely the 911 call, and attempted property restriction without due cause. What followed was a 2-week legal whirlwind. Julia uncovered that Patricia had been abusing her HOA position for years, targeting minority families, manipulating fines, and even misappropriating funds for beautification projects that only affected her own property. She documented everything, filed it with the county, and set a court date. On the day of the hearing, Patricia arrived smug and self-assured. She was wearing a pearl necklace and had even brought a folder labeled Pool Violation Evidence. But that confidence slowly dissolved as Julia presented a thick binder of evidence backed by sworn testimonies from multiple neighbors. One neighbor even brought in security footage showing Patricia sneaking into people's yards to photograph their patios. The judge wasn't amused. "I see here," the judge said, adjusting his glasses, that the HOA, under Ms. Langston's supervision, filed over 200 infractions in the last calendar year. 95% were dismissed. Over $70,000 in fines were issued, with no documented board meetings approving these fines. And you called 911 over a backyard swim session with no code violations? Patricia started to stutter. "Ma'am, this is a textbook example of abuse of authority," he said sternly. "And you wasted emergency response resources. You're lucky your HOA isn't being dissolved on the spot." The final ruling, A personal fine of $1 million levied against Patricia for damages, harassment, and misuse of emergency services. Furthermore, the judge ordered her immediate removal from the HOA board and banned her from holding any community leadership roles for the next 10 years. The look on her face as the gavel dropped was one of pure disbelief. For the first time in years, Patricia had no words. Later that evening, the neighborhood felt different, lighter, freer. Neighbors came by with snacks and smiles. One dad from down the street brought over root beer floats for the kids. People congratulated Julia and asked if she might consider running the HOA instead. She politely declined. As for Patricia, she sold her house within 2 months and moved away. Now, every summer day when I dip my feet into the pool, I can't help but smile. Not because we won, but because it reminded the entire community that even the loudest bullies can't stand against truth and integrity. The next Saturday, we threw an actual pool party. No forms, no fines, just family, friends, and freedom. And this time, even the cops showed up, but only for a burger.